Hi everyone. Hi Ankush. Hi Russell. Hi Ashwin. Hi Kanti. How are you doing? Nice to see you all. Let me just put up what we are going to be speaking about today. And I'm very excited about this one. Great to see you, Nasser, Nitin, Kranti. Okay. Well, a lot of people. Yep. And I'll ask a guest to just wait a bit. Uh, and there's Alok and Yogita too. Thank you. Thanks for joining in. Just give a couple of moments for a few more people to join in. Hi, Tushar. Nice to see you all. Hey, Bhumika, welcome. Brilliant. Thanks. Purva, too. Nice. Thank you. I hope everybody's keeping well. And do let me know if in between two, three your comments, if the sound is fine and if you can hear everything properly. Also, when our guest joins in, uh, Indian Blackbird. Hi, how are you doing? If the sound is fine or not, so that we can take necessary precautions if needed. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. The sound seems fine as of now. So, okay, this is 2 minutes into the session. So, let me now. Great. Thank you, Indian Blackbird. Thank you for letting me know it's all okay so far. Great. Um, Okay, so let me begin. My name is Amit Sangekar. मेरा नाम है अमित सांगेकर. माझं नाव आहे अमित सांगेकर. Welcome to Beyond Reading with You, Season 3, Session 6, where we do poetry reading and more. Nice to see you guys all. Our last session was about Abundance in Life by Nidhi, the Zesty Soul Diary, and what a session it was. Thank you for all the feedback that came my way. Really appreciate you guys taking time and sending that feedback. We'll move on to something interesting today, the art of capturing a moment in our lives, photography. It has always fascinated me. The mere idea that a moment in time can be frozen through a medium itself is so exciting. Ancient Roman poet Horace said, "A picture is a poem without words." It stands true for photographs today. One discipline of photography that has been talked about a lot is street photography. I'm going to read out a small poem by Alex Jackson Smith, a photographer himself. And this is how it goes. It's called The Street Photographer's Poem. When our attention is grabbed by a street scene, we then try to capture what we have seen. A person and place at a moment in time, a record of them, and it's all mine. We march all day and cover much ground, secretly noticing all the people around. Wrapping our hands on our optical box, we covet and clean and avoid all knocks. Taking our time to watch for our next and running away if the reaction is vexed. We candidly capture the world as we see. We live on the streets and we are free. Beautiful sentiments of a street photographer captured by Alex. Uh, and I think the essence of what street photography is, which we will speak about throughout the entire session today, with somebody very whom I admire great for his work. Uh, I'll start off with a small with a few lines by a very famous guy, Joel Meyerowitz, and I think all you photographers would know about him. You fill up the frame with feelings, energy, discovery, and risk, and leave room enough for someone else to get in there. That is what photography means to these great people. Let me now get the full guest in today, and I hope there are technical problems, which is always the case with Instagram Live, and most of the times I'm just waiting. There he is, Apurva. Okay. Hi. Can you hear, Apurva, can you hear me?
Clear. I'll just raise the volume of mine.
I'm just, because I am not able to hear you. Just give me a moment, yeah? Can Apurva just say a couple of words? I just want to check if people can hear
Hi.
us.
Hello? Hello? Mic check. Can you hear me?
I'm going to try and get my volume up. So
Hello?
Gayatri says you can. I'm going to, Apurva, what I'm going to try and do is, I'm going to try and disconnect my this headphone, because I don't seem to be getting the voice through this headphone. So just give me a minute. Your voice is audible. Don't change anything from your end.
Good.
Apurva, could you say something?
Hi, Amit. Thank you for having me on your forum.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
I can hear you now. Now I'm going to try seeing if these work. Yeah, sorry. Can you say it again? Yeah.
Hi, Amit.
Yes,
Thank
this
you
is
for
perfect.
having me on your forum.
These wireless things are always a bit
All good.
Okay, great. Apurva, okay, Apurva is a Mumbai, Bombay-based photographer who has been indulging in the art of photography for now close to 15 odd years, more than a decade. He identifies himself as a city photographer, and he loves chronicling Mumbai, Bombay, the city of dreams, as everybody calls it. He is an excellent chef in addition to being just a photographer, and recently has ventured into cinematography, and that is something which we may speak towards the end a bit. But Apurva, thank you so much and welcome to your, should I say, first Instagram Live?
Yes. Yeah. Never done this before. Completely enjoying this.
Good. I saw the excitement among people when I put up the session, and when you put it on, and there were people who were sharing about it. So I'm sure there are a lot of people who really want to listen to you. And so we will not waste too much of time and delve in and just dive in. Tell me, how did photography, or what was your initial exposure to photography? How did that begin?
I just want to start saying that was a beautiful intro, and I could completely relate to the poem that you just recited. That sums up what a street photographer actually does. So, I think, like everyone, photography starts at home, and we all are photographed by our fathers, or maybe an uncle in the family. And our first introduction to photography is our childhood albums. And I'm no different to it. Like everyone, we've grown up looking at our childhood albums, and I think there's a lot you can take out of it. In a sense, if I have to trace my pictures, what I do and what I shoot, yeah. I think some of the signs and some of the you could see it where I'm picking it from. It's actually my father's gaze. I've never really told this. This is the first time I'm actually saying this to everyone. I should tell it personally, but in a lot of ways, I see what my father saw in me. Wow. And I think that's what I end up doing when I'm on streets. So, yeah, so photography actually, he used to take pictures, okay. And as you're sort of growing up, your father will hand over the camera to you and you'll start taking pictures. Right. But with me, what happened was I was also good at drawing, Okay. So photography sort of took backseat, it was just another thing, you just start taking pictures, and I never really looked at it once I got in college. Right. But then, I studied applied arts at Raheja, Bandra. Okay. And photography was like a small thing, like a subject.
Okay.
from the various things that we have to learn as a commercial applied arts.
Right.
So that is when I retook the camera, and I started taking pictures again, and back then there was no digital, so
Correct.
developing your own pictures in the darkroom, and that little bit was introduced, but it was not really taught. The theory and the practice, it was not. It was all very technical.
Correct.
And I think that is my reintroduction. That is how I sort of retook to photography again. And I never looked back then.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So, what was, I mean, the professional photography, if I have to call it, was there some kind of a turning point or a particular time in which you decided, okay, this is now where I would want to go?
So in college, we had study tours, and each of us goes and takes pictures of Darjeeling. We are taken to all these exotic locations every once a year. And so, like everyone, I used to take pictures there. And what happened is in my final year, during Ganesh Visarjan, in I think that was October, September, I went with all my friends, with like everyone who, it's a yearly event for all photographers.
Okay.
I went there and I wasn't carrying my camera.
Oh.
And
okay.
I still remember Amay, my very dear friend. In fact, I took a couple of, I took the camera from him just to take a couple of pictures. And because I had nothing else to do, I was just looking around. And when you're young, you're very savvy about who's got what camera and what lenses he's shooting with. And I saw this gentleman later, Chiradip Chaudhary, and wearing the photographer's jacket, and you're just curious, about who this guy is. And I kept looking at him until he took notice of me, and I wanted it. I wanted that. Okay. So that's when I sort of exchanged his visiting card, and I was like, maybe I'll get in touch with you later once I graduate. Okay. And so I did. Once I graduated, I called him up. We met up at T Center, and T Center back then, which is at Churchgate, right close to the station. It is like you walk in, and there used to be these historic, T Center with the who's who of the political fraternity. And
a lot of nostalgia.
The olden days, the celebrities used to go at T Center. And yeah, I mean, a photographer wanting a job, trying to seek different avenues. I was called up at T Center, surrounded by all historic photographs around me. And I still remember that meeting, and I had 13 pictures from the study tours, during college, and also a trip that I made to Kumbh Mela in 2003.
Okay.
So I showed them to Chiro, and Chiro had a look at it. A couple of days later, Chiro was offered a job as a photo editor at Time Out, Mumbai.
Okay.
A magazine that was sort of released in 2004. It started. And he called me up. He got me on board as a staff photographer. And that was how I sort of became that's my initiation in the world of professional photography. And that's how I got in.
Time Out brings up a lot of identification with this because of my food exploration journeys. Now I identify with Time Out as more of a magazine which does a lot about a particular city. I'm sure during those times, working in Time Out or with the people at Time Out itself must have been a great learning experience.
Actually, I was not much very good at academics, never.
Okay.
And that's how I enrolled myself in an art college. And suddenly I was put in a bunch of journalists, and it was a little intimidating, but Time Out opened the world to me. It opened up the city to me. Chiro himself being a very, personally, I think everything that I learned in those 2 years, I owe it to him because he used to have extensive conversations. I remember those days. It was no less than any school, when it comes to learning photography. And, Time Out had different sections like film, nightlife, out and about, art.
Correct.
So, and I was the only photographer back then, so,
wow.
I was photographing every aspect of the city. One day I would photograph like a portrait of a film star. Next day, it could be an author. Next time, probably go and photograph the railings on a building in Baikala, So all these little things, which sort of allowed me to see the city up close.
Correct.
And that was where I think the germ of the city photographer sort of was incepted.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I think we should all thank Time Out for giving us somebody called Apurva Gupte to the field of photography in general. I'll come to street photography as such. Tell me how did it happen to you, or was it a natural progression from something from your time at Time Out, or was it something that struck you something while you were doing something else, and then suddenly you said, okay, this sounds interesting, and here I want to maybe get into some kind of a conversation later as to what really street photography means to you, because there are so many definitions floating around and so many interpretations floating around for it that it is very difficult at times to say, okay, this man is a street photographer, this woman is a good street photographer or not. We'll get into that later, but tell us about how did that start with you?
So I was sure of what I wanted to do in the genre itself, in a sense, like having learned applied arts, one can take up commercial photography, like advertising photography for that matter, fashion photography. I remember going and meeting Chiro after my college, and I told him that I want to be a documentary and a street photographer.
Okay.
And he told me back then it's a very difficult genre to be in, and I knew what I was getting into.
Okay.
So, I don't know. When it all, I think it was very organic in that sense. I really don't know whether it was one instance where I figured I wanted to be a street photographer. It's not like that.
Okay.
I always carried a camera with me till 2019, wherever I went.
Okay.
Never stepped out of my house without a camera. And I think during my stint at Time Out, the magazine sort of gave us a digital camera back then, but I always carried my camera, which is a film camera. And within those shoots, during transit from one shoot to the other, you often saw things in between.
Right.
And I often took pictures of it. And I think so there's no particular memory of me sort of becoming a street photographer, but I can tell you one thing, that once I left Time Out, I left because I wanted to work on my personal project.
Okay.
Because when you're busy and you're sort of on a job, you get very little time to explore and indulge in your own practice.
Correct.
And I think everyone at Time Out, when I left, they gave me like 10 rolls of Kodak Tri-X. They all knew how much I love taking pictures on
rolls. When you hear that rolls now.
Yeah, it's expensive. Back then, I think still it's unaffordable to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's expensive taking pictures on film. And I sort of told them that I'm going to do something with these 10 rolls, and I started photographing Horniman Circle. In
Yes.
2007 October, 2007 September.
Possibly.
And that's where I sort of learned, probably I matured in a way, if I have to say that. And when you're on streets, back then books were the only material, to understand photography. Internet wasn't that, and even if internet was in the information, you still knew what to type in.
Correct.
Even if the internet is there, if you don't know what to type in, it doesn't exist for you. So I think the 3 months that I spent at Horniman Circle photographing people on the benches, and I think that is where I understood the craft, if I have to say that, how to approach, how to confront,
Okay.
how to overcome the hesitation of, sort of pointing a camera to somebody, a complete stranger who is not going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
But, there's a certain compulsion that comes when you're doing street photography, because,
Correct.
in a way, a street photography is a custodian of everydayness. All of us are timekeepers.
Wow. Okay.
And there's a certain responsibility, and and if there's something that affects me, there's almost this sense of urgency that I want to do this, and if I don't do it, nobody else will. So there are a lot of these issues, as a street photographer, you are sort of constantly having this uh, conversation with yourself.
Correct.
And yeah, so I think those 3 years at during shooting at photographing at Honeyman Circle, and they've stayed with me. I I still go for the man in the crowd. I still don't shoot wide. I still sort of try and close in as close to the person. And yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is. I'll sort of yeah.
You just mentioned you finished off your conversation with as close to a person, and I can't identify more than this particular moment where you
Yeah.
are literally close into somebody's space, literally,
Yeah.
and to get into that kind of space, and yet be, I don't know, how should I call it, non-intrusive, possibly,
Yep.
within them, but still maintaining that entire concept of capturing that real moment. I'm
Yeah,
going
I
to put
mean,
up the close-up
you see what
also of this
happens is,
particular one. Yeah, yeah. Tell me.
yeah, can I? So what happens is, you know, I'll just tell about myself. I'm 6 feet tall and I'm huge, and I know every time when I'm near a child, a baby starts crying. I'm intimidating maybe in a way, and so are all street photographers. You're placing your body, you're going and disrupting a certain situation. It's like entering a lift. You're standing on a floor and there's a certain order inside a lift, and when you step in, people make space for you because they understand that here's a sixth guy. Assuming there are 5 people inside the elevator. I think this situation doesn't change when you're on street. People take notice of everyone, and because there are strangers around you.
True.
This being a touristy sort of gateway of India, at any given point there'll be almost like say 500, probably 1,000 people around you. And even if this couple didn't see me,
Yeah.
there are others who are watching me. Okay.
Correct. They are.
And I have to be very clear about, as street photographer has to be very clear about his intentions. And even if there's a slight hesitation, they will misread me. They'll misread what my intentions are. So in that sense, you have to be, you have to sort of act that act. You have to be in that act to its truest sense. And yeah, I mean, you're trying to sort of preserve a certain authenticity, trying to, there's nothing authentic about a photograph, to be honest. There's not, I mean, there is, you try to present something like, you're trying to preserve life as is, but it's not that. I can only come as close to depicting it. And that is where the craft comes in, because you make, there's, you're seeing something, but eventually you make pictures with your hands. You use the eye as a chisel and the hand as a hammer, and you're going like tak, 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 tak. And that is where the craft comes in, because even if I'm seeing something, my hands have to sort of, my body, and I'll tell you what happens. Witnessing something, some place, is a multi-sensory experience. It's not just seeing something. You're smelling it, you're hearing it, you're touching something. So how do you translate, a picture which probably a viewer is going to experience visually?
Correct.
How am I going to translate every stimulus that my senses are picking up? And I think it's the job, and this is where it comes in. This is where the craft comes in. How do you translate what you're seeing, and yeah, to its truest sense, probably, to sort of as close to what reality was. In a way, we are consuming reality. I'm consuming reality, and an image is a residue. I'm consuming life. The life, I have to keep it intact. I don't know. I mean, it's a little difficult to express
One of
these
our earlier
ideas.
conversations, you used the term life as is, and that is possibly what it conveys. You need to present it in that manner. there are two points which came up. One of them was where somebody who's watching us. There is Swapnil Prabhu. He plays around with stories of food, and he does it very beautifully. He just asked a question, and it was there on my mind too. How do you handle the concept of consent and ethics in these kind of capturing of these moments? Is it implied? Is it implicit? Or is there sometimes where you need to actually go and tell them later? Because what you want is a moment then. How do you
Yeah.
bridge that gap?
So I'll tell you what. Many a times my subjects don't even know I was there.
Okay.
Okay, and I think it comes with a huge responsibility. Uh, One has to preserve a person's dignity. I can never take that away, even if I'm photographing probably somebody who's not so doing well in life, probably somebody, uh, maybe, you know, I'll tell you one thing. I never photographed. I've always tried to show the brighter side of life.
Okay.
But at the same time, when I experience and when I witness certain events, I just have to be very responsible. I don't. If someone, there have been multiple cases. Even at times when I've managed to make really good images,
Yeah.
but if the person sees me, and if he comes to me saying that, listen, I don't want you to be using something like this.
Correct.
I saw you taking a picture. And if I sort of give him a certain reason and if he's okay with it,
Correct.
I'll use it. But
Okay.
even in that conversation, if he's still sort of being persistent about not wanting to use that image, and if I say I'm not going to use it, I never use it. And I've had multiple pictures where, you know, I just don't release them. I just don't release them. It's a common thing for photographers to come across unwilling subjects, and that's completely fine.
Okay.
But it's I think there's a certain uh, photographers have a certain, I mean, as a photojournalist, for instance, I would say,
Right.
there's you're allowed to probably, take pictures of people to a degree of in, invading someone's privacy. And I'll tell you something. Privacy is not something where I have to close into you in order to invade your privacy. I could be standing 50 feet away from you and just keep staring at you and you make you feel uncomfortable. And that is what I keep saying, that
Yeah.
when your eyes have pressure, women understand it very well. I can just look at you and I can tend your skin, and uh, I think good photographers know how to use that. How to I can convey somebody just by giving a glance,
It does.
by using a certain posture that, hey, listen, I'm not here to harm you, without having a spoken word between us. And I think it's a behavioral science, and that is what we invest most in.
Correct.
Most of the time, I'm taking a lot of pictures, probably few pictures someday, but for 4 hours that I'm walking,
Yeah.
I am investing myself in understanding a certain behavioral science
True.
and how I can use that, to probably make an image. So
You're
yeah,
right.
I mean,
Responsibility is something which comes along with every profession, and I presume a lot of people forget that when they are executing that particular profession. And just like that, I think street photography, as you said, it is that one look or that one particular behavior which you convey to the subject matter, whether it identifies with them, and if they are comfortable. At times, you get some of the best shots without them knowing, and at sometimes with them knowing about it. Like this particular one which you had at the Gateway of India, I'm sure the lady had absolutely no idea that the shot was being taken.
yes, yes. So one of the things which we do is I never hide my identity as a photographer.
Okay.
I want everyone to know why I'm here for. And It's different in different situations. For instance, for instance, I used to take these routes. I still take these routes, a particular route.
Okay.
For instance, in a 3 hour long walk, say probably from Grand Road to VT, there's a certain path that I take almost every day if I have to. Also because the first couple of days people will be like, who's this guy? He comes, what is he doing? And every time when I'm there, they will take notice of me, and probably they'll stop doing what they are doing. And they'll be like, oh, they'll probably look at what I'm shooting.
Okay.
And that's all right. And that's how I would probably act if somebody sort of comes in front of me.
Right.
But if I repeat this, if I'm a garage mechanic and I'm just working on something, and if I repeat this, the next couple of times I'm not going to take notice of you. I'm like, he's just another guy, doing.
True.
That's where the work begins. So in a place like this, they know I'm around,
Yeah.
but so I have variations of this picture,
Okay.
where I knew there would be a certain moment which might, I'll tell you what, the lampshade over there
Yeah.
is what makes me want to take this picture. I don't know
Wow.
whether she's going to do that.
Okay.
I don't know whether she's going to do that. There was a harsh sun, it's back, it's behind her, so
Correct.
that's a bonus. But for me, I knew the kind of sari that she was wearing, and there's a sort of oriental looking lamp around,
Yeah.
So I'm just sort of waiting. I'll tell you what, in a way, street photography is, it's like reverse forensics. Where in forensic science, there's a certain moment that has happened,
Correct.
and these guys come and they're tracing clues. You pick up things of what has actually happened. A
Yeah.
street photographer will look at what's being offered to him and try and piece together at a occurrence that may happen or may not happen.
Wow.
So we are always sort of taking and picking up these telltale signs of what I'm being offered. What is the possibility of what can happen in a certain
Correct.
given moment. So yeah, I mean that's what we do. We are always sort of going around sniffing. I think yeah.
Have you
If that
been
makes sense.
because of being in Mumbai? Do you think that has possibly been an advantage to you in capturing moments of people because of the crowd itself and the diversity of the crowd?
I must say this: Bombay is a very difficult city to shoot. I'm not saying this because I shoot it. I know. I'm saying this because Bombay doesn't have an identity. It doesn't. I go to Jaipur. I go to Jodhpur. You can figure out just by a picture whether this is Jaisalmer, this is Jodhpur, this is New York, this is Paris. Bombay doesn't have an identity. And what's difficult is there are people from all different caste, culture, creed. I don't know what a Mumbaiker looks like. I know how a Rajasthani looks like. I know how a Tibetan looks like. If I'm in Ladakh, I know how they look like. I know what they do, what their dislikes are. There is no face that comes to your mind if I say Mumbaiker.
Yeah.
I don't want to stereotype somebody, a Dabbawala wearing a Gandhi topi and saying that that's a Mumbaiker. There is no face.
Yeah.
So as a job, as a photographer, I try and place myself in crowded cities. I love crowds. I dread empty streets. I mean, there's a certain kind of street photography you can do on empty streets.
Yeah.
There have been days when, if there is a mile-long street and I know certain streets which are empty, which are empty at a certain hour, and if I find myself at that hour, it's dreadful to walk that mile. That mile is treacherous. I change my path just in case if I see a small lane, even if there are 5 people, I'll take that lane. Even if it is a longer route, I will take that and not that mile probably, just because people I enjoy being in a crowd. Bombay offers that. Bombay at any given time offers that. There are certain zones which are probably occupied. So it's like the city sort of has these zones. For instance, Fort is not occupied post 8. Fort is empty. South Bombay is fairly empty because most of the crowds out of the office goers come back to suburb.
Yeah.
So in the mornings it would be VT, in the mornings it would be maybe a certain commercial district in town. You go to Mohammad Ali Road, you go to Masjid, you know. So I try and place myself in these pastures, and all street photographers have these green pastures, and they hold them dear. A lot of them don't share it. It's completely fine, because that's all right, and that's the nature of the fun, and that's how you discover, that's how you discover these places.
No, so true.
Yeah.
This particular picture, you had some particular some description of it when you first shared it.
Yeah, I mean, this was shot way back, where I still hadn't formulated my ideas of what a street photographer should do and shouldn't do. What I'm permitted to shoot and what I'm not.
Okay.
And this was late night at Churchgate, and I was just walking towards Marine Drive,
Okay.
and I saw this couple. They were having a small dispute, and it's not a good feeling to see another human in a certain situation.
Yeah.
It's not, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening? The woman was. They both were. The guy's hand was completely stretched,
Okay.
and she was probably 4 feet away from him, and he was pulling her back. I was witnessing it, and I was like whether to shoot or not. And she was taking very gentle steps towards him, and I was like, listen, I mean, I'm not on someone's private property.
Yeah.
I'm in a public space.
Correct.
I mean, it's okay to take a picture. I mean, it's happening it's unfolding in a public arena.
Correct.
And I took a picture just before he sort of dropped the hand.
Oh. Okay.
So had I been a little late, probably it wouldn't have been that sort of a thing, what it is here. But yeah, I mean, you grapple with these issues. The previous picture also,
Yeah.
you see a lot of these women carrying babies, at the signal, probably, those gajre walis. There's a
Yes.
certain tribe which makes gajras.
True.
I understand what it is, but I think the fright here in our eyes.
Very true.
A couple of years back, I'd watched this film called Turtles Can Fly. I don't know, I think that is what sort of. So what happens while taking pictures? I'll just take like 2 minutes here.
Sure.
You're constantly being stimulated. There's a certain stimulus you're getting from your previous stored memory, and everything what you're witnessing, your memory, you're trying to extract, your memory is throwing at you certain little information from previously seen things. And the moment you strike a chord with what has happened before and what you're seeing,
Yeah.
there's a certain palpitation that starts, your mind starts working, and there's a certain feeling that comes to you. I wouldn't have made this picture had I not seen probably that film and what happens to children in war-torn areas,
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's her child, and
Absolutely.
she seemed a very young girl, It's just that pride and it's not.
I think
it
a lot of
it
these
stresses you out.
things which get captured are possibly can only be seen after you have possibly learned about those experiences or seen about them. And at times to see the unseen, and this particular picture for me is a very interesting example of how to look at. Even when we discussed this, I had a different interpretation of what I was seeing, and you had a different interpretation of what you saw. Let us first hear yours, what you saw in it.
So something I didn't tell you about this picture is, so if anyone who shoots on Nikon T series lenses, they will know that there's not much difference between a 28, 35 and a 50. Their make is the same.
Okay.
And Tushar Mane, on that day he wanted a lens. and I shoot with a 35. That's the lens that I carry. So I've only used two lenses in the last 14, 15 years
Okay.
that I've taken pictures. I shoot with a certain lens for say 5 to 6 years. Nothing else. I don't change it.
Okay.
And I had just transited to 35 lens. And Tushar wanted a lens, and I gave him my 35, thinking it's a 28. And I was at Metro, and I was like, let's walk, and I put the lens on the camera, and suddenly it was a wide. And I was like, man, what's happening? It's disorienting. The moment you change a lens for any photographer,
right.
it's like changing your number of your classes. It takes a while for you to settle down if it's a new sort of a number. And I figured the mistake that had happened. I just kept the camera and I was like, no shooting day today. And that's when I started walking towards VT.
Okay.
I was not in any mind frame to shoot it. I saw this lady who often sits there to protest,
Okay.
and I saw the shadow, and I was like, forget it, I just want to make a picture. But I'll tell you, it was only because I was on a 28 lens, this picture looks the way it is.
Okay. Okay.
Any more, any less, I don't think I would have been able to sort of achieve a certain space and a certain proportion that was probably required. So there are certain bonuses when things go wrong, and I think I just try to capitalize like any other photographer would on that day,
Awesome.
So and it's the horns and the demonic looks like Batman.
Yeah. So for all the viewers, when he first showed me the picture, he spoke about Batman, and I was speaking about Satan.
I'm a little loud, I know. Sorry, viewers, if I'm
No,
sort of
don't worry.
screaming in your ears.
No.
I don't.
He saw Batman, and I was seeing a Satan in it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, it's so
It's a demonic face.
True.
I don't have a close up of this, but that's the bonus. There's a 6666 number that's written on that little thing. Maybe I should have sort of zoomed in.
Okay.
So
what
this is
what
what-
she's holding. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that number was there, but like the shadow is. These are the gifts of street photography. You have to be just humble. I'll tell you one thing. Being on a street, it's a living entity. If you're not humble, it takes you down. You really have to be a caterpillar. You have to be like Salgado says, the salt of the earth.
Yeah.
Any arrogance. I'll tell you what. Something that happens. I'll take a minute here.
Yeah.
Every time a photographer gets a picture, I used to come and tell my wife. I used to go and tell my friends. I made a lovely picture. I used to rave about it. I did this. I did that. And every time I did this, the next day, I used to dread myself. As if like the street heard it. As if somebody somewhere figured that this guy is sort of, I need to teach him a lesson to sort of just get him down,
Correct.
So I never brag about my pictures anymore, because the moment I do that, I know that something somewhere will just hear me, and
Yeah.
I'm going to have a bad day tomorrow.
No, I think
So
your
you
pictures,
just have to be humble.
your pictures
That's
speak
the
for
way to
yourself.
move forward.
I'll tell you, your pictures speak for yourself. I'll tell you a couple of comments which have come in. Vatsala Goel mentions, miss these conversations so much. I'm sure somebody whom you have
Thank you.
possibly had.
Thank you.
Then Ameya Mansabdar calls this particular picture Onida Devi. I can
Okay,
imagine
wow.
that.
That's a good name. Thank you, Amay.
There are a couple of other comments which I want to put up, but before I put them up, I want to possibly look at a few more pictures of yours. One is this one at Dongri.
Yeah. So everyone knows what Budia Surma is. The graffiti of it will be on shutters. I think there's Budia Surma and there's some other Surma, just two of the brands.
Okay.
Very famous. You walk down Mohammedali Road and you'll see these signs of eyes, staring back at you. So this was just one of the days, and I knew this thing, it's gone. They've converted into a hotel. very sad, and this is precisely what makes me want to go out every day. You sit at home, you don't walk the streets of Bombay for 2 weeks, the facade changes,
Yeah.
and these are really old quarters of the city, like Girgaon, like Kalba Devi, like like some of the shops are very old, and the city is in transit, like every other city in the world. Oh, it's gone. I waited there for just somebody to walk in, and it
Okay.
turned out to be an old woman, and it's a graphic image in a way. Oh, but yeah, I think very important in that sense. Just for this thing is going. You're being all these shops come up with these aluminium uh, mall-like
Mall-like
material that they
features.
have called
Yeah,
Alto
correct.
Bond or something. I don't know. And yeah, it's not a pleasing thing to look at.
I think even this particular picture, this is
Yeah.
Churni Road Station.
Churni Road Station. So yeah, I mean, I don't need to explain this.
Yeah.
What's happening
I
here.
want to go to
You
this
just-
one of these set of these last pictures which you have shared with me, with this particular one. Extremely.
Yeah.
I mean, there is so much interpretation which every single person can have, and it will be so different from what you may thought of. Because the question which I had in mind was, do you have a story in mind when you actually click a picture, or is that story at that particular moment in time which has formed?
So nobody goes out with a preconceived notion.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't. Uh, you you just go with an empty slate, and all you know that you're going to walk. That's how it is. You just tell yourself that you're just going to walk. In this case, I'll come back to this, but there is no preconceived idea of what I want on a particular day when I start going. Uh, you know what the place looks like. When I'm going to Crawford Road, I know I can formulate because I've been there. I know what I can possibly see, but know what life has to offer to you. No director, nobody can stage it. You can't conceive things that you see on the streets, and you just have to be ready to pick up. And it's a difficult thing to do. I'll tell you, in this case, I used to go and photograph the Derby. I had a fascination for what happens, and it was a closed world. Nobody in my family, nobody I know of goes to derbies and plays bets on horses. So I just wanted to go and investigate the world, and this I did till 2009. And so I'll tell you one thing. I'll come back to I'll go back to the family album.
Yeah.
Though my photograph took pictures of me and my brother at home with my mother, the photographer is often not photographed. So in my case, I didn't have a picture to give at you. When you needed it for this, I didn't have a picture. I don't know if somebody photographed me. There may be. So I don't have pictures of me with my father.
And
That is what, that is that empty shell that I explore. I have a series of father and son. And I always go and fill in that gap. And this is where, I think that it's a triptych actually, where the son was mimicking the father. And, you see yourself, you see certain memories and glimpses of your life
yeah.
in it. And this is how you are drawn towards the subject. But the story is not yours. I'll tell you what, the photographer, like, in photography, it is more about the picture and never about the photographer. You know, it, as a photograph, it is irrelevant who took it. It is absolutely irrelevant. It is about what's happening in the frame.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter. You just have to. I'll tell you one thing. I don't know whether this analogy sort of works, but a moment chooses the person. It chooses whom it has to reveal to, and it is like a child about to play a prank. And when the parent looks at the child stops. At a function or whatever, the child is all over, and he's just about to play a prank, and the father will just put a gaze, and just look at him, and the child stops, and that is precisely as close to what I can tell you what happens when a photographer sort of uh, with a very strong gaze, or who sort of understands what's happening and what's being unfolded in front of his eyes.
Correct.
Yeah, you look in that short span of time. You try to look in that very little time that you get, and yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to try and put a.
I don't know if that answered the question.
No,
I don't
no, it
yeah,
does. It does. And I'm going to put up a few things which people have put up. So, for example, there is something. Let me see. I don't know if this comes up on your screen, and it comes up completely. We are creating art is a compact between the artist and their environment, where the environment has to accommodate the experience. So I can't read the whole stuff because it's gone beyond a bit of way, but I'll try and. I'm going to try and send over these comments to you separately also. Yeah. And
so one of the things about while taking pictures of the city is, I'll tell you one thing. We all have a city in our heads. We
Right.
all have a certain idea of a city in our minds, and it lives only in our memories. And when I'm out there taking pictures, uh, sort of relying on that uh, information that was handed over to me. I'll tell you where it happened. The idea of a certain Bombay that I try to live is while I was being tuitioned by my uncle who used to come and teach me. I used to call him Nana, my auntie's uncle. I was a bad student, and my he used to come and teach me, and after giving me homework, he used to indulge in conversations about the city with my mother. I grew up at Bombay Central,
right.
and my mother grew up at Kirgaon, at Gamdevi. So they used to talk about how back in those days, he used to sit in the buggy, when he was young in the 40s,
Right.
and back in those days, sitting in the buggy was a expensive affair. How he used to tell me about stories of Regal, how it was, I think, the second AC theater in Asia. I think the first or the second AC theater in Asia. How he used to see the Bombay Progressive Group, Tayyab Mehta and M.F. Hussain standing in Lengas and Sadras at Jahangir.
Okay.
Paint this. I mean, I used to sort of listen to these conversations, and when I got sort of older, I started tracing these memories,
Right.
somewhere. And so the idea of a Bombay, when I go out, is an accumulated one.
Correct.
It is also, the pictures of Paris, the pictures of London, the pictures of New York that I've seen,
Yes.
and somewhere they all sort of, converge together, while I'm on street, I'm extracting, always from these memories,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm going to. We have about only 7. I didn't realize there are only about 7 minutes left in the session.
Wow.
One is the most important thing which I want to ask is what you have always shot with film
Yeah.
till about a few months back, maybe.
Yeah.
And
I have not shot in the last, say, a year and a half.
okay,
Yeah.
what do you shoot with? What is your arm or equipment, if I have to call it?
So one uses all types of cameras, right from medium format. But I love 35mm street photography,
Okay.
and I think I have my camera. I'll show it to you.
Sure, please.
And the viewers actually. Oops, sorry.
All right.
So yeah. So this is my go-to camera. It's a f3. It's a really old one. I've used this for like 10 years now, and it's a film camera. I bought it secondhand from a friend, and I've also tried to sort of paste it because I banged it. I don't use a camera case. So I just lug it around when I take the trains and I just
Okay.
find it. So yeah, it's a 35 mm lens, and yeah, so that's about
Okay.
it. That's about
Awesome.
it. I think a lot of people are familiar with these cameras. There's a resurgence of film.
Yeah.
And,
Siddharth Govindan says tank. I didn't get that. What do you mean by that? Why did you say tank?
So I never gave up film because I knew it did something to my work.
Okay.
It did something to the kind of pictures I wanted to make. Every year, everybody used to come and like tell me why you're wasting money. Eventually, you're going to digitize it. I understand the logic of it, but there's a certain discipline which film has to offer, which I don't know if I can let go of.
Okay.
And it has taught me to be economical, to be succinct, to not shoot on any given day. Probably if I take say 11 pictures, I'll be really more than happy.
Correct.
So that's how little I shoot, and probably it makes you shoot precisely. It gives you time.
Yeah.
It slows you down.
No, I got
So-
Siddharth's comment. Siddharth, somebody mentioned it's built like a tank to last as strong as
free.
possible.
It's a
why-
workhorse. The electronics in these olden cameras still function. I just changed the battery after 1.5. I mean, it must be a 40-year-old machine, but
So true.
it works. It's made to last.
Tell me, is your work going to get seen somewhere? Do you have a? Is it getting
So
put up,
I
compiled?
did make a. Pardon, sorry, come again. Sorry.
Is it getting
sorry, I interrupted.
compiled? Is it getting coming together somewhere?
I have a huge archive right now. I have managed to sort of bring them together and make it into a sort of a body of work.
Right.
I did make a dummy copy of my possible to be book called Bombay Memorial.
Okay.
It's a note to the city. It's something I made in 2016. I'm still sort of. I had put that project on hold, but maybe I should sort of take it up and complete it because I think what has happened now is 2020 is a date that we'll never forget because of the situation and
Yeah.
what lives we are living. There's a certain life that was lived before. I don't know if that we will revisit or that will go back to a certain kind of normalcy the way it was. And in light of this, probably some of the work and some of the pictures that photographers becomes very important, because it's important to sort of show this material to the people,
Yeah.
tomorrow, and they would also definitely want to know what life was, Of course, I hope things get back to normal.
Yeah.
But I'm looking to sort of compile it in a book
Very nice.
called Bombay Memorial. Hopefully sometime soon.
Cool. The number of comments here. It is waiting for a photo exhibition to attend of Apurva Gupte. This is Abhishek Gaud's studio. Somebody says it was a great privilege to click both of you
Thank
in a
you,
wedding.
Abhishek.
Sanket, I think, was there. One can go on listening to Apurva when he talks with so much passion about photography, about anything actually. One session isn't enough. I have only 57 seconds remaining
Wow.
of this particular session. Apurva, if you have time, we can actually do a part 2 right now. Do you have about 15 minutes more?
Yeah, I mean, I can go on. Please.
Okay. So what I'm going to save this session.
So long as
Give
the
me-
audience is not.
Yeah, no, don't worry. The audience will be back. Give me 5 minutes exactly. I need to put up this session first because otherwise I will lose the session. So I will put this session
Super.
up and I will come back and join again. So everybody who's listening,
Thank
just
you
give us
everyone
about
for
5
joining
minutes.
us. Come
Yep.
back soon.
Yep. See you.
Okay. See you. Bye.
Let me see if I can. I will just get Apurva to come in again. Just give me a minute. So this is the second session on which this has happened, where we have had to extend beyond what we had originally planned. So just give us a moment for Apurva to come back. And I am waiting. I'll try and I'm going to keep the comment section on for some time, because somehow the questions which were posted in the questions tab, longer questions, I'm not able to see the whole question. So all of them who have missed out putting up the questions or had put in questions on the questions tab but were slightly longer, if you could put them in the comment section right now, I will try and ask Apurva these questions in some time. So just give us just give me a couple of minutes, and if you can start typing in your questions. Thank you, Rajesh. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Remember days in 1996 in Korea and films were precious. You remember any moment when you felt the photo would have met it? Oh my God. Okay, that's a good comparison question, Rajesh. I'll remember that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Let me see. Anybody who's posting in the questions section, if you could put the comment here too. I'm still waiting. Let me see if Apurva has come in. I can't see Apurva. Paroma also had a question, but I can't. I'm still waiting for Apurva. If some. Just give me a minute. I'm going to try and ping him on WhatsApp saying that we are live. No, I got the comment. Preeti, I've got Rajesh's comment. I'm waiting for. Where is Apurva gone? Let me tell him that we are back. Is there anybody else who has been? Hi, Ankush. Yeah. Even I'm waiting for him. It looks like now the celebrity has decided to take a small break and make all his people wait. Uttara, if you can manage to call Purva and see if whether he's still. There he is. Oh, finally, celebrity has arrived. Everybody putting the questions in the roving frame. Also, if you could just put your question in the comment section here, because I'm missing out the part of the. Okay, Uttara is joined in. I'm going to add him now. Apurva. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me, Apurva?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Perfect. Okay. I hope everybody can listen to him. Okay. I'm going to dive into a couple of questions which people have asked before we dive into our discussion. One of the questions was by Rajesh. He's asked, he remembers his day in 1996 in Korea, where films were very precious that time. Do you remember any moment where you felt that the photo would have been better if you had today's technology? Do you think that?
And it's a very good question, Rajesh. Thank you. So I'll tell you one thing. What film does is it allows you to let go of the image.
Okay.
I'm not a photographer. I don't take pictures to acquire something. You see, I mean, there's a certain aspect which a photographer has to understand is to not be too attached to what. I'll tell you what. So in digital, a digital camera is designed to allow you to shoot in every given scenario. You know, if the light is fading, you push up the ISO, you bump up the ISO, and you can photograph. You know, it allows you to photograph in any possible situation.
Correct.
Now, it's a good thing. I love digital where it's, you know, for commercial purposes and everything. I love it. In fact, I take pictures with digital. But there's a certain restriction. There's a certain, you know, what what film has to offer.
Yeah.
Which I like. A certain restriction, you know, that I have to operate in these limited confinements. And I think those limitations and those confinements which you work under
Yeah.
also change your subject matter. It changes the way you want to approach something. You know, for instance, a slight motion blur, you know, a slight motion blur in an evening shot works. There's nothing wrong in it. I need not freeze it. I need not push my shutter speed in order to just get the bus freeze, you know. And these little things, you know, these little smaller things probably, which probably, and I'll tell you one thing, I don't want my pictures to have perfection. Digital is great. I mean, I love it, but what film offers me is that there's a room for error. There's this little room for error that film allows.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Makes me sort of, you know, which, I don't know, which eventually sort of helps the picture sort of look much more, I don't know, authentic is the word, or real, I don't know. Real probably, you know, real.
It does.
Nothing is so organized, nothing is so perfect.
Correct.
Some of the pictures that I've made, those things don't look like what they are, you know?
Yes.
It's
So
just
true.
a fleeting glimpse.
True.
Yeah, so those perfections are needed. I don't know. So I hope.
Good. So Nitin Radhakrishnan asks, what have you learned? This is a very deep question, okay? What have you learned about life in general after investing yourself in moments from other people's lives? That's actually a very, very strong question.
Yeah. So I must tell you that the practice of street photography is a character building experience. When you look at all these people, you know, when I look at these people, when I look at the faces and, you know, what these people are going through every day, you know, things are harsh. Things are harsh when you are walking on the streets. It may appear this guy is smiling in your camera, but what he resumes later, the work at Kumbharwada, you know, he's not even he doesn't even know where his next meal comes from.
Correct.
You know, when you look at these people and the faces, it makes me want to tell their stories.
Yeah.
You know, and you can take immense. I just have learned humility. I don't know what else one can learn when you're on the streets and when you see the brutalities of.
And I think a city like Mumbai brings
life is
that
not pleasant every day. Yeah.
A city like Mumbai brings out that more,
Yeah.
especially in, or possibly any cosmopolitan kind of a city would bring out then. Siddharth Govindan asks, Apurva's top 3 photo book recommendations.
Wow. I can name. So I love Pittsburgh. I grew up looking at books of photographers. So W. Eugene Smith's Pittsburgh. Then if one can get hold of a book, it's very rare. Day of Paris. I have a book in which all these thumbnails are there.
Okay.
If one can look up by Andre Cortez.
Okay.
And maybe Gypsies, maybe the Americans, maybe Into the Orient by Mark Ribot.
Oh, that's a nice one. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I love the pre-1950s, 60s
Okay.
photography. And, yeah, so.
Okay. There's Roving Frame. I do not know the real name of the person. Which are the photographers you have studied and feel that they did a great job out of photographing India?
Bruno Bobby, there is Raghuveer Singh, but of course there's Raghu Rai, but yeah, I mean, I think Raghuveer Singh will be my pick.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ask Paroma to actually just, Paroma has sent the question twice.
Hi, Paroma.
Twice in the questions tab, but the question is getting cut. So if you could possibly just post the comment here twice by splitting it up, I'll ask that question here because I'm not getting the last part of the question, which is a bit more important. There are a few others who have. Pratik Patel says, miss walking around the town with you and these conversations.
Hi, Pratik. I remember those 8 months. Join me again.
So Preeti at My UK Kitchen. Preeti is incidentally a person who experiments with food a lot. She also does, her food photography is of a completely different kind. She makes, and she's an amazing person too. And the way she tries to bring about life to Indian dishes through foreign ingredients at times, and she does it very beautifully. And I know when she says these things, I love how Apurva looks into the intangible part of photographs. So, which is like, so when Preeti says something like this, I know that she's really, really appreciated it. There was something else one person had asked. Let me go back to that. I presume night photos, and I think this is possibly the ISO thing. You have already answered that. The question was night photos required ISO 800 and day photos with say 100 or 200. Did you miss any of the photos due to film? But you said you needed those imperfections.
So no, I've photographed a lot of night pictures. They have not been probably shown here, but it doesn't restrict me or something. You know, I mean, it has its. You have to figure out. I mean, I mean, I've photographed immensely in the night.
Yeah, I'm putting up this image because I've got a couple of messages from here. Please put up that last image. So I said, okay, I'm just putting up the last image. Okay, so.
I have a story about this picture.
Please.
So this is at Kumbharwada. It's called Gandu Bagicha.
Okay.
So the reason it's called Gandu Bagicha is because a lot of illicit activities used to happen, which is very close to Kamatipura, you know, the city's red light district.
Okay.
So a lot of these druggies and, they used to go and, So all these taxiwalas, the old taxiwalas will take you to this place.
Okay.
So next to the Maidan, there is, the PMC and they have made this book library, you know, for the students to come, for the boys and girls to come and study.
Okay.
You know, and behind that, there's this statue, they call it Durga Devi.
Okay.
And I remember walking, one day, and this is when, you know, the Bombay, a lot of these old plots were being converted into high-rise buildings and everything. So right in front of this, there used to be another sort of a wasteland sort of a thing, probably a 1 acre thing. And I was sort of coming from, and it had every time when a construction is happening, there is those, what do you call it, those aluminium sheets are being placed around it.
Yeah. The scaffolding.
I saw the head of the statue sort of bulging out. And I was like, what is it? You know, and of course, and it's inside a corner. Nobody knows this statue exists. Okay. So did I, and I slowly enter, and and there was this guy, he's a security guard, sleeping on the plinth. You know, it almost it reminds you of Pieta. And the dog down there, you know, going about doing what dogs do. I was like, man, I didn't know. I mean, my heart was jumping on the Richter scale of 8 to 9, you know. I don't do much. I shot 9 frames here. I must say this, from all possible angles, because it's, what you are seeing here is not direct, straight. I had to manage this. There's a certain geometry.
Okay.
Because of the lines behind, and can you see that little trinity of lines?
Very much.
Yeah. If that goes behind the statue, somehow, I don't know. So I just had to figure it out. I shot 9 frames. This 1 frame looked good out of it, yeah.
And I think interpretations at times will differ so much. So for me, when I looked at this image a second time, and for some reason, this was a total kind of, how should I put it? A reverse image of the Statue of Liberty, okay? So I was trying to think about it in terms
Yeah,
of,
that's
oh
a
my
nice
God, the
interpretation.
Liberty statue reflects so many different emotions. And this is literally giving you the opposite of this, of what has possibly happened. Maybe, but
Yeah,
others
it's very
will have
symbolic to the work that I'm trying to do also, you know. I see that statue as Mumba Devi, you know, probably, you know, the goddess after which the city is named, you know.
Right.
And all of us sort of, you know, probably, I don't know, it can be interpreted in various different ways.
Also, I'm just going to briefly go through all the images again once, and at the same time, I'm going to put the comments on so that I get a bit of yeah. So Paroma's question is something
Yeah,
which I want
I
to
was
go
coming
back.
to it.
Yeah.
Hi, Paroma. Thank you.
Interesting, you mentioned about non-verbal consent, especially while shooting on the streets. But there's something I wonder about, inevitably because of the photographer shooting in a place of conflict, or a street, or a slum. Is the person with more power, is her balance? And there's also the matter of caste and privilege. Oh my God, oh yeah. And there's always, and that doesn't always leave the subject with an option but to be photographed. It's a silent agreement almost, submitting
Very true.
permission because of the subject is outweighed by the power of privilege, caste,
Happens.
agency. Wow.
It is something which photography brings along with it.
Yeah.
I can't deny this. There have been times, but even in that, I would probably sort of look at a certain, go down at a certain human level,
Yeah.
you know, and make sure that I am not sort of imposing myself onto people who don't have a voice, you know, where they would see me as somebody that they just have to allow, you know. They are not in a position to probably stop me or, you know. And throughout my career, probably, I've never really sort of tried to capitalize on that. In fact, she brings up a very crucial issue in photography. You know, I cannot capitalize on that power that she is mentioning as a photographer.
Okay.
You know, I think she has raised a very valid.
I think it actually goes into that ethics point also, which somebody brought up before. And I'm comparing this to today's media in general, how privacy is no longer an option for anybody.
Yeah.
And you will find cameras being shoved into your faces
Very true.
to so try and capture those real images. I was particularly disturbed by when the Jawans, some Jawans lost their lives in certain conflicts, how the media reaches their houses and literally shoves cameras into their faces to capture the so-called real emotions of those families. And I presume a good
I must say
photographer
one
would
thing.
never have to do that.
You're right. I'm glad you mentioned this. I'm glad, in fact, Parma mentioned this. Street photography is no less than going out on the street. You know, it's no less than photographers going and photographing in conflict zone. In fact, it's much more tough. There's a certain agreement to somebody who in a conflict zone, you know, comes to terms with, where he's giving a certain permission. I think it's the same question that Parma is sort of
correct.
trying to highlight. Street photography doesn't allow. You know, these people are absolutely, they don't want you around. You see, and there is much more hostility on a street than probably a photographer photographing in a conflict zone.
True.
And that is very true. And of course, it comes with its own dangers.
Yes.
But what street photography offers is it has its own set of problems. I have a picture of a person here trying to cover himself with the leaves, you know, and I had taken a picture. He's looking at me through the leaves. Yeah, I mean, I respect people whenever and as and when they refuse. In fact, I have to say this, that while I was photographing on this series called Fairy Tales, where I used to board on a ferry deck along with a couple, and I used to take pictures of them, I was so close to a couple. In fact, I could just listen to everything that they had to say. And I made a very good picture with the skyline of the gateway and the Taj Mahal, the Taj
Right.
hotel behind, and
The Taj Hotel, yeah.
yeah, the Taj Hotel. And I was like, I mean, maybe they should have it because I knew I had a picture. Maybe I should tell them that, listen, these guys had actually met over Bharat matrimony or some marriage matrimony. And that was their first meeting.
First meeting. Wow.
And I thought maybe it'll be a good remembrance for them if all they take to it. And I approached them saying that, hey, listen, I took a picture of y'all and probably y'all would want to have it. And the woman was furious. And she was like, how can you take a picture of us and this and that? And I was like, I mean, here's a guy. I mean, it's literally taking a stone and putting it on your own feet.
Correct.
They turned out to be lawyers, okay? And I knew what I was getting in. And I told them, listen, the man understood. He told that he's being upfront in coming and being honest to us and saying that I took a picture.
Yeah.
I told them I'll never use it. And I've never used it, So I don't know what the option is rather than my word.
Absolutely.
When I say that, if at all you don't want me doing it, I don't know. And there's so many pictures, I don't use them. That's the least I can do, in fact.
Wow. Indian Blackbird asks a very pertinent question. What motivates you to be relentless?
I think I have not given up that. I don't want to give up that. Those little steps when you start doing something new and that excitement. For me, Bombay has been, what do you call it? Like, it's occupied me. Most of my family is bored probably because I just shoot Bombay. My brother is probably like, go around taking pictures. Probably you should go to visit Ladakh. But I want to leave behind something for the city. I'll tell you one thing, which was probably the germ. You take New York, you take Brooklyn, you take Bronx, you take Broadway, I mean Harlem. Harlem itself will have 50 books,
That is true.
I mean, Bombay is the publication hub probably. Bombay is a major old city. It has not more than just 7 books till 2020. Say, I will give it 10. We don't chronicle our cities. We don't have a visual archive, a visual depository.
Understand.
Where people can, and that is what I understood, that this is what one has to do. So I'm photographing I have a book probably, a small booklet probably on Chowpatty, on the Muslim Maulla, just on Dongri, maybe just on Gateway of India. So I'm doing my bit, where I'm photographing these little small areas of the city extensively. And that is what I want to do eventually, leave a sort of
awesome
archive behind,
Okay. Shreya, the handle is Shreya Litti, so I'm sure somebody who you know. As the saying goes, one can see a part of a photographer in their photographs. So she asks, do you think your street photographs give a glimpse of you as a person to someone who does not know you at all?
Definitely. There's a lot that a picture can tell about a photographer. The choices we make, the kind of people we shoot. Yes, I am almost trying to be, it can be autobiographical.
Okay.
If you go through the kind of pictures that I take, there's a lot of what can reflect from my life.
Wow.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, there are 2 more questions. One is not a question, but one is a comment. And
thank you for the question.
This is Indian Blackbird asking, also, will you continue to photograph Bombay, Mumbai in future, as it is destined for transformation very rapidly? Do you think you will still be photographing Mumbai, or will it Bombay, or will it be something else now?
I don't think my fascination for the city will ever be diminished. Maybe the medium may change. I am contemplating whether to continue black and white. I am leaning towards color probably. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there'll be an end soon towards maybe, I'm sort of getting into motion, I'm trying my hands in
Correct.
cinematography. I've just started, in fact, I did a course in Chennai and came last year, and I was assisting Swapnil Sonawane, in fact.
Wow.
So in fact, I must mention Lanesh Desai. I used to have conversations with him in the last 2-3 years, and then how I took to it, because video is sort of a big thing now. A picture is seen in a second probably, but for me to even understand any video, any ad, any film, as a viewer, I have to invest 5 seconds. I have to invest a minimum of 10 seconds.
Okay.
And that is a lot of time for me as somebody who is
Understood.
in that medium. That's how much time I have. So yeah.
Apurva's super talented wife has put in a comment here. She's
Hi,
she's
Apurva.
equally very
She's
talented.
sitting in the next.
And she
sitting in the
mentions
next room.
he loves the city so much that he has tattooed Bombay map on him. So I can.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
that
but
is a
seriously,
candid,
I think every single word of yours actually shows your love for the city. So
Wow.
I don't
Okay.
I don't dispute.
I'm gonna have a word with Purva. Thank you. Sorry to override, but I still can't get over what my wife is just. Yeah.
But I think
with public. Go ahead.
trust
Go ahead,
me.
Amit.
There's somebody from Allahabad who's actually mentioned. Hello, Apurva sir. How do you see Magh Melas as a street photographer? Love from Allahabad. That was Aditya Mani. Yeah.
Hi, Adit. Okay. Is he referring to Kumbh Mela?
It
or
could
Magh
be.
Mela?
I think that, I think in the month
never
of Magh
photographed
there are
Magh Mela.
melas. Yeah.
I think he's referring to Kumbh, yeah. I'll tell you what happened. I photographed Kumbh just the way I would photograph the city. It is actually a city. They set it up over a distance of 32 kilometers. I was walking for like 18 hours a day, and I photographed it just the way I would photograph Bombay. In fact, I don't have the epic scale of Kumbh in the pictures of 2009 that I shot. I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing,
Okay.
but I was just interested in those individuals. And Kumbh is a place where that individual gets lost. And Kumbh is always about the crowd. Kumbh is always about the scale and the grandeur of
Yeah.
the event,
Correct.
And for me, I was looking at that one individual, the man in the crowd. So, yeah, I mean, I just did it the way I would in the city, probably, yeah.
So Preeti again from UK mentions we would like to hear you talk through some more of your photographs someday, some other session. But I think Apurva, this is
Yeah,
an
maybe we
invitation
should
for
probably-
you to actually have a online exhibition. I do not know if I should say of yours. You should
Yeah.
actually do it, and that's what the world is doing nowadays. If that so somebody again, Indian Blackbird. Thank you for the Baidyanath Patankar Kada dose on life and photography.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, very nice, Ankush. Thanks for asking that question, and somehow I missed it. Was there any instance where you were intimidated by any of your subjects, by a person?
Happens. See, I'm going to say something. I have something to say about this, but don't take it in a wrong sense. Of course, it happens. A tiger never kills a tiger and eat it. A tiger always preys on the weakest. It's a very thin margin. A street photographer has to be understood by what and with the kind of subject matter he's dealing with.
Right.
There is intimidation. One overcomes it. One gets intimidated. But the pictures will tell you what he or she is dealing with. If I have said it, So yeah. The pictures leave that answer. You'll find the pictures, it's not for the photographer to say it. You look at the photographs and one is free to gauge the kind of circumstances one is shooting in, and yeah.
Yeah. Rajalakshmi, I've always been fascinated by how Apurva
Hi,
can
Raj.
become invisible while being so intensely present and just bring the picture into beings. Very rightly said, and I think all the pictures which we showed today conveyed that. Roving frame. Intimidation is common. It's a power play exercised by people, a way to show off territory. Exactly what you mentioned, the tiger example kind of literally says it. There's one more. Satya from Chennai, I presume. Love your work, Apurva. Very curious to know your choice of black and white medium. Oh, we missed this question, Apurva. It's come up. The black and white medium. Is it dictated by the camera or subject matter?
Thank you for the question. So I'll tell you, to put things simple, it was the simplest thing. It was affordable when I started out. I still shoot on the same roll. I've never even photographed multiple rolls. I photograph on Kodak Tri-X. Everything that you saw is on a Kodak Tri-X. There's no secret to it. It was cheap when I started out. I don't know whether it's a choice, whether I'm still shooting with it. I don't know why I shoot. It's a question which I don't know if photographers can answer why color, why black and white. But there's something about black and white which is a little malleable. A red is not a red, but a deeper shade of gray. And there's a certain amplification a black and white picture offers where I can shred itself from what it is and sort of not modify it, but sort of, I think amplify would be the right word to, sort of play around and tweak it, in order to sort of struck at a certain chord that I'm after, So you may call it drama, you may call it, I don't know, but it offers, it's like clay,
True. Somebody, Human Roy, I don't know what the real name is, but how important is a degree in photography for one's career in photography? What's your opinion?
Absolutely, it doesn't matter at all. I mean, academic education helps.
Yeah.
An academic education in photography can definitely help. Anyone who can afford it in a great institution, good place, one should, because it's a different kind of understanding. It allows you to, there's a certain compulsion in understanding the history. If one can do it all by himself, well and good, but academic studies allow you to, and, make you want to do it, So, yeah, I mean, but a degree per se is of no relevance.
Okay.
Your degree is your last picture. Your degree is your portfolio and what you leave over the years. I think that is what people want to look at.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So, are we going to see more of cinematography now?
I've started it out. It's too early for me to even comment on motion imagery. I've not sort of dwelled on it, or I've not created a body of work. I've not explored it that much.
Okay.
But it's definitely something I want to take it up and sort of continue,
Okay.
There's a certain commercial aspect in, street photography doesn't get you, I can't pay my bills just by doing street photography. It's purely the labor of love,
Yeah.
So I know I have to balance it out. And yeah, I mean, so
Okay.
the future in terms of commercial aspects is motion and probably
Yeah.
cinematography. That's
Somebody called Pranav Shinde has asked your experience at Mind Screen Institute. Would you recommend it?
very good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's relevant. I'll just answer it shortly. Like what I was told by my by seniors, or the guy you have to experience MNG,
Mm-hmm.
and anyone who has experienced it, I find a guru in him. I'm assuming everyone does. I never came across a simplified way of teaching in all these years of my life.
Okay.
MNG is the guy why we all go to Mindscape.
Awesome.
No secret to it.
Super. There's a couple of other conversations. Pratik Patel mentioned this is how conversations with Sir go. 2 hours into it and you still want to listen to more. That is your testimonial to your good work, Apurva, and the influence you have had with people. In fact, in one of the question tabs, Ameya Mansabdar has left a comment that it is thanks to you that he's a good photographer today. So thank you.
I must just make a slight change. I'm talking in a certain language. I must just say, MNG sir. I just refer to him as a guy in this conversation. Sorry, MNG sir.
Yeah. So no, very, very nice. Oh my God.
A lot of us have deep respect for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we end these two questions, this session, I read two quotes and they actually reminded me of what I was not sure whether I should use them, but when we went through this entire conversation, I think I must read them out. One is by a photographer, Rene Bury. The person says, a photograph is a moment. When you press the button, it will never come back. I mean, it's like what you said. That's the moment which has been captured there. You will not get it. And you mentioned it about the lady with the sari also. You didn't know what would have happened if the sari would have been taken away, would have been put that way. The man who was holding the woman's hand, when would the person release the hand? That was there. And Robert Capa, if your pictures aren't good enough, you aren't close enough. I was like, how close do you really get to have a really good picture? Yeah. But I think he means more of the mental space. How close are you really to that moment to capture that? So I identify these two, especially after a conversation now. And so thank you very, very much for
thank you for having
this entire session. I have absolutely enjoyed, and so have all the people here. The kind of comments we have got, the number of likes and all. Unni Krishnan, see, even where you are living, when will we be getting the book, sir?
Soon, only wait for a while.
So, but no, Apurva, thank you very much. Your work is phenomenal. People have been inspired by it from what I have seen from the comments here, and I'm sure you leave that this kind of work will carry on from your end. You will some more work will come from you. We really hope exhibitions, books, or whatever in which way which comes to you as your way of expression will come out, and we'll be looking forward to it once all these things start getting normal, as they say. But even if they're not normal, I think you will find a unique way of making sure that your work gets to people. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you being there. And I hope to see you soon sometime in India.
Definitely. I just want to take time to say and tell everyone thank you for supporting me. Thank you for sort of spreading the word. Each of you all, I don't have words to sort of
thank you for that too. Actually, yes, your entire fraternity
for all of you.
Yep, true. Very nice. Thank you so much, Apurva. You take care of yourself. Stay safe, and we'll speak soon.
Okay? Sure.
Take care.
See you, everyone. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Oh my God, that was Apurva Gupte. What an absolutely fantastic session that I have to actually extend the session to another almost equivalent amount of time. This was brilliant. And yes, I agree, Ankush Gupte, Mansabdar Ramay, thank you so much for being so supportive. And the number of people who shared the post and attended. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I think that is testimonial to Apurva's excellent work. So please take care, each one of you. I hope each one of you stays safe. This is Amit Sangekar signing off from another session of Beyond Reading with You. Take care.